Hey, what's up and welcome to my channel. I wanted to talk to you about how to raise the rent on a Section 8 tenant. My name is Zeb Plant. I'm a real estate agent and a broker, but I'm also a landlord. I have a Section 8 tenant and their lease is about to expire soon. So I wanted to walk through the steps on exactly what I did to get this process done. So the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, that's a mouthful, provides rental programs amongst other things. They have a housing choice voucher program or a Section 8 program. With that said, if you're a landlord, you probably know what Section 8 is, so I won't get into that on this video. Raising the rent on a Section 8 tenant is similar to raising the rent on a tenant who's not on Section 8, but there's just one little extra step. All right, so here's the 7 steps. The first step is I called my tenant. I let her know that her lease was expiring. That was the reason for the call. And I asked her, did she still want to stay? Is she happy there? And of course she said, yeah, I love it here. I want to stay. So I let her know basically I'd be raising the rent. That was the thing I was going to do when her lease expired because she's not paying as much as the market rent or what she should be paying. Step 2, I called the housing authority. I called the actual housing representative that was handling the case, and of course they don't answer their phones over there. But I did leave a message, a very detailed message. I just let them know who I was, why I was calling. I had a tenant, gave the address, my tenant's name, let them know that I would be increasing the rent soon when the lease was expiring. And I just wanted to get ahead of the fact that, hey, let's cooperate together. What do I need to do? Give me instructions. So about 3 to 4 days later, which is pretty typical, I got a detailed voice message, and this is what it sounded like.
Calling you back from the housing authority. So for rent increases, you just have to at least give us 60-day notice if the rent increase is gonna be 10% above or less than 10% of the current amount. But if it's gonna be more than 10% of the current amount of the rent, you just have to serve a 90-day notice, and then that notice just needs to be addressed to the tenant. And then just give us exactly a copy of what you gave the tenant, and then we'll be able to process it, okay?
Basically, if the rent increase is less than 10% of the current amount, then I need to give a 60-day notice. And HUD wants an exact copy of the notice that I sent. And if the rent increase is more than 10% of the current amount, then the tenant needs a 90-day notice put in writing to raise the rent. Also, the rent increase must be effective on the 1st of the given month. Okay, cool. So I know this is a long step 2, but now I'm getting somewhere. So I also know that anytime I change the terms of tenancy for my tenant, whether it's a Section 8 tenant or not, I have to serve a notice of change in terms of tenancy. Which takes me to the 3rd step, filling out this notice of change in terms of tenancy. Here's the form. I'm in California, so I have to abide by the Tenant Protection Act. And properties covered by the Tenant Protection Act give 4 options if I want to raise the rent. These are my 4 options. The first one is a rent increase of 5% or less. The second option, a rent increase more than 5%. Third one is a rent increase of no more than 10%. And the fourth one, a rent increase greater than 10%. So my property is in an LLC, and therefore these 2 options are the only ones that I have. And my tenant's property, the fair market rent is well below what it should be. So I'm going for option 2. And I'm going to do a rent increase more than 5%, but no more than the maximum allowed by the Tenant Protection Act. The maximum increase in rent allowed over the previous 12-month period is calculated by using a formula established in the Tenant Protection Act, Civil Code 1947.12G, but in no event greater than 10%. So now what I have to do to calculate this is go to the legislative information here, section 1942.12G. For purposes of this section, the following definitions apply, and I have to find the CPI, the Consumer Price Index for my county. And once I do that, I'll have the formula to add the 5% plus the CPI, which happens to be 3.6 in my case, and I'll check this box and I'll have a 5% plus 3.6%, which is 8.6% increase in my tenant's Section 8 rent. I'll write the new amount in here, fill out the rest of my form. Step 4, mail a copy of the notice of change in terms of tenancy to the tenant, mail the original to the tenant, and then mail a copy to the housing authority. Step 5, this is where the housing authority will make the processes and the changes, and then they'll send out the paperwork to your tenant. This usually takes 3 or 4 weeks or even more than that. Step 6, you and the tenant review and sign the housing authority's paperwork. And step 7, you and the tenant review and sign your lease, your landlord-tenant lease. So those are the 7 steps to raise the rent of a Section 8 tenant. Don't forget, don't wait too long before sending out that notice. It's a 60-day or 90-day before the lease expires, because if you wait too long and past that time frame, the housing authority won't approve it, and you're going to have to wait another year in order to raise that rent again. Hope that helps. Feel free to comment below. Thanks.